Well, it's a very good evening. Good morning to you, Zimbabwe, and a warm welcome to the Morning Grill, where we bring to you sizzling hot topics just the way you like it. My name is Tawanda Goodlanga, your host. If you've just tuned in for the very first time, it's a warm welcome. This is your interactive talk program that looks at issues of the day. And as it is interactive, we invite you to participate by giving us a call on Harane number 498651, 498651. We also have a WhatsApp platform that's 0778 784 222, 0778 784 222. Spread the word to your loved ones in the diaspora. They can get in touch with the latest of Zimbabwean issues here on SFM by simply logging on to www.sfm.co.zw, www.sfm.co.zw. Today is World Teachers Day. According to UNESCO, World Teachers Day represents a significant token of the awareness, understanding, and appreciation displayed for the vital contributions that teachers make to education and development. Education International, the global union federation which represents education professionals worldwide, strongly believes that World Teachers Day should be internationally recognized and celebrated around the world. Education International also believes that the principles of the 1966 and 1997 recommendations should be considered for implementation in all nations. Over 100 countries observe World Teachers Day. The efforts of Education International and its 401 member organizations have contributed to this widely spread recognition. And of course, Zimbabwe joins the rest of the globe in celebrating World Teachers Day. And in the studio, I'm joined by two teachers, and hopefully the third one will join us. I have the pleasure of welcoming Mr. Sfiso Ndlovu, who is the Chief Executive Officer with the Zimbabwe Teachers Association. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Gujanga. Good morning, Zimbabwe.
When was the last time you held a chalk?
Well, it's been quite a long time in terms of giving instructional teaching to students,
yes.
But I do hold the chalk on a daily basis when I talk to teachers.
When you talk to teachers. Also joining us is another esteemed teacher, that's Dr. Augustine Tirangana. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Tawanda. Thank you, Zimbabwe.
I know you're always holding a chalk. Nowadays, it's more of the felt tip pen that's used on the whiteboard.
Yes, but symbolically, it's just the same as the chalk.
Indeed. Gentlemen, today is World Teachers Day, and this is a day that really also recognizes teacher organizations as they come together and celebrating this day. Looking at 2016, the teacher in Zimbabwe today, the state of the teacher today. I will start, of course, with you, Sfiso.
Thank you very much, Tawanda. First and foremost, we must also recognize that this year's theme is valuing teachers, improving their status. And the question is rightly put because you're asking 2016, where are we? Let us start by looking at the positives. Zimbabwe is a celebrated country in terms of producing teacher quality that is respected throughout the world. We are, of course, a proud country now that we have produced so many teachers that are sought after. And these sought after materials that we have in this country are what we should be celebrating today. So we are happy that we produce good teachers. We are therefore celebrating their good work and their professionalism.
You're talking about good work, but teachers over the years have been under serious criticism, particularly those that have been dealing with exam classes. Teachers putting to the fore their issues above their calling as teachers. Today, the O-level pass rate sits at around 23%, and more is expected of the teacher today, unlike before.
Yes, Tawanda, there are so many variables that come into that question. You are talking about pass rate, and we are saying who is determining the pass rate. You are talking about 5 O levels, a grade C or better. Somebody has set out there and has decided that our students who do not get a C grade in mathematics, therefore, our materials to the doldrums. That is not correct. What is wrong, therefore, is that the material that we are giving to students is not responding to their capacities, and therefore what it means is we are not tapping the full human potential that is existing in every individual in the student, and we could be using wrong tools to assess the student. And I think that is where we should be coming to address the question of pass rate. It's not correct to suggest that probably the former Anglo-American or Anglo style of our examination is the best.
But of course, the new curriculum has been put in place. What is your session as teachers today, looking at the dynamics that now also consider the other side of the student, which is not necessarily cognitive?
Thank you very much, Tawanda. That is a good question. Let's come down to probably a simple day-to-day activity like performing arts. How many of us ever think that these artists are part of the ingredients of our life? How many of us celebrate that kind of life? But when we gather as a society, what do? We want entertainment. Where do we want it from? From those human beings. And that's the entertainment which we should polish. So I'm just picking up one aspect of art. And that is why we are introducing in the curriculum, most importantly, the issues to concern with arts as an important element of our society. I'm taking away deliberately the issue of mathematics, science, because there's so much talk about it as transformative subjects for our quality of life. That is one area, but we must also celebrate the other aspects of the individual attributes that our students have.
Dr. Tirwanga, the teacher today has so much demand, particularly looking at the output of the child as they face the world. Are Zimbabwean teachers really up to the task, in your view?
Yes, first of all, I want to agree with my colleague that the Zimbabwean teacher has contributed immensely, not only to the economy, because many people often think of the economy all the time, but I also want to say that economy is only one of the many aspects of human life. We also want to take into account such things as character building, and we are here talking about values, you see, and so teachers have played a very big role in terms of shaping the values of our children's society, and also in terms of building the character of our people. So certainly I wish to say that the teachers' colleges have played a very big role in preparing teachers for this particular task. As we have heard from the predecessor, that my colleague here, you notice that throughout the world, the Zimbabwean teacher is a cut above the rest. Within the region, the Zimbabwean teacher is a cut above the rest. And everywhere you go, we distinguish ourselves. So that points towards the fact that the training of teachers is really very, very effective. And by the way, I also just want to drop in the fact that when we're talking about the Zimbabwean teacher, let us not confine that to the primary school teacher and the secondary school teacher alone. We are here talking about the teachers in their entirety, and this includes the trainers of teachers who are lecturers at colleges. This also includes the trainers of teachers and other professionals at universities, the lecturers as well. So we are here talking about a whole range of people who are making a significant contribution to their lives and also the professions in Zimbabwe.
Dr. Tirwanga, Zimbabwe is known to be largely cognitive than practical, and some of these challenges are actually witnessed by the slow growth in industrialization. Where are we missing the link? Is it about a teacher capacity, or it has something to do with the curriculum?
You will remember, Tawanda, from my previous talk here on SFM, that we inherited a colonial curriculum. And that colonial curriculum was largely cognitive. And you also remember me saying that there is a need to move beyond just focusing on the cognitive aspects, because as you have also heard from my colleague here, the most important thing is not only to do with intellectual development. It's only a third of the human development nexus. We are also talking about, the affective domain. We are also talking about the psychomotor domain. In his reference, he gave reference to performing arts, for instance. We could also add, sports. There are many other areas which can also contribute to industrialization. So it is true, the examination system has been focusing mainly on the intellectual or the, as you have put it, the cognitive domain. But we need the examination system actually to expand so that children with different skills, different capacities are able to be examined, and so that they can also excel in their areas of specialization or their areas of talent.
But given that, coming to you, Sifiso, how do we achieve this talent and value, even if it goes beyond the cognitive aspects, when Zimbabwe is still faced with a high teacher-pupil ratio?
Correct. That is the challenge that we are facing now. And you must also have heard that we have been putting a very strong defense against a system where we are suggesting we must have teachers not recruited. And the recent midterm policy review statement by the minister almost alluded to that fact, which we vehemently fought against, because we believe we shouldn't be practicing any situation like that. We think these prescriptions that are coming from abroad are not fair to Zimbabwe, because if you go to those countries where those people are coming from, there is nobody who appreciates a 1:40 ratio. Their children are taught at a ratio of 1:19, 1:20, and they are therefore having a special attention. In other words, they have invested in education, they continue to invest in education, but they want to come here and suggest to us that education is a social spending which is not worth investing in, and creating therefore a problem for humanity in future, because this is where the human resources development begins. When we talk about an excellent worker, we are talking about somebody who has been appropriately groomed, like he has already spoken to the issue of values, a person who has grown up with a motivation to deliver, a motivation to respect the systems that we have.
Are our teachers motivated to deliver? The contentious issue around incentives emanated from the education sector alone, despite the fact that there are other professions in the civil service, and up to today they are sort of getting those incentives as a way as to motivate the teachers. Are teachers not holding parents and stakeholders to ransom, Sifiso?
I think, Tawanda, the model we're talking about of motivation is a wrong model, because we seem only to be talking about a financial model. That is one area of motivation. There are several areas of motivation that we should look at. The first one that I come to bring here is to make sure that we facilitate and provide for continuing training for our teachers to sharpen their instructional principles. We are saying to our teachers they must continue to receive supported education, and you must know that teacher capacity building program that was launched by HE a few years ago is bearing fruits, because we are now producing our teachers who are now studying even our indigenous languages and improving it, so that we can even talk about computers in our own indigenous language. So in that aspect, that is one area. We also must look at that, link that with the issue of promotion. Promotion does not necessarily mean that you get into a higher grade where you become probably a responsible officer and taking off from class, but gradually move on to the ladder in terms of your income, and that is salary. That is a way of linking that development. So we must revisit the model of motivation that we are using, and many people thought money would be the only motivation, and it has been proven in elsewhere that not only money is a motivational factor.
But the teachers themselves, do they realize that it's not only money which can be used as a model for motivation, Dr. Tirana?
It is true. They are very much aware of the fact that there are other models of motivation. For instance, you hear many teachers talking about, the need to be availed with the strains to build the houses, for instance, especially those that are in the urban areas. That's a special area of motivation, incentivization, to make sure that all teachers are adequately and decently accommodated. They have a roof that they call their own, and the government can actually provide a kind of service that way, for those who are in the urban areas. For those in the rural areas, there are also other similar types of motivation. They can also be availed with land, to do some part-time farming and so on and so forth. So there are many different forms of empowerment that can be availed to teachers, which they can welcome. And surely the idea of teachers depending entirely on parents, paying some financial incentives and so on, it cannot be sustainable forever. And if it can be sustainable in one institution, certainly it cannot be sustained in other institutions because they do have varying, material conditions.
Let's talk about the relationship between the teacher and the parents. Over the years, teachers have been looked up to in terms of developing the child. You spoke about shaping values, about character building, and this seemed to be relegated entirely to the teacher. Has this changed over the years?
It's not only the teacher that has suffered the relegation of dignity. It's everyone else as a result of the economic downturn. I'll tell you something. Dignity is not something that comes automatically. Dignity has to do with your material worth to begin with. Now, when the teacher space has been eroded to a point where the teacher becomes a beggar, for instance, surely that has a direct impact, negative impact on the teacher's dignity. And before you even talk about the way teachers are being downgraded by parents, you must have a look at the way some of the teachers are downgraded by their own students, for that matter. When a teacher has become so broke to a point that he or she relies once in a while, with students, borrowing from students, something like that. You create a situation where the teacher becomes dehumanized.
But is it not now a question of ethics, Dr. Tivangana? Because as much as there is an economic downturn,
yes,
but should the teacher degrade himself or herself to the extent of relying on parents and students?
It's not something that we are condoning. It's also an ethical violation. But there are many things. See, ethics as a board of principles is something that is respected only when you are within certain levels of dignity yourself. Now, quite often ethics, much as we desire ethics, can be violated by circumstances. Quite often you hear many people say, you see, it's the conditions that determine your behavior. Some of these things are done out of desperation, and sometimes it's not everyone who does that. It's a single incident when someone becomes so desperate to the point of lowering himself or herself to that level. But when that happens, media picks it up and it tarnishes a whole group, including those that are not victims to that kind of practice.
We'll talk about the dignity and the status of the teacher is alluded to, where now, because of the economic environment, teachers are having to lower their levels in terms of dignity. But should it be a question of the economic downturn or the environment, or it's about the profession which should have an impact or an influence on one's, how they hold themselves in society?
The expectation is that you must have an impeccable character. And the issues of character have to deal with the issues of the personality development. And that is very critical in teachers as well. And what we should be looking at as well is in the selection and recruitment of teachers, do we have a selection criteria that does probe into the moral probity of an individual who may have good passes but may not necessarily be fitting in the teaching profession? We know, for example, that we've got a misfit in some cases, a very excellent student who is excelling very well and doing well, but when it comes to character, the person cannot fit in any society, cannot live well with others. These are the issues that we should be looking at in the teacher selection and criteria. Then we support the selection criteria with a very positive legislation, and here I am looking at probably the issues of code of conduct. Currently in the civil service, we don't have a code of conduct that governs the teachers. What we have is a kind of an instrument which was put in by government. In my assessment, that instrument is a clear kind of maybe an extract of the book of Exodus 20 verses 1 to 20. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. That does not mold the character of an individual. We need a model that will bring about corrective action, a model that will bring about a person's out there and to be trusted by parents. Remember, this is a position of trust.
A position of trust. This is the Morning Grill, and this morning I'm in the company of teachers on World Teachers Day. I have with me Mr. Sfiso Ndlovu, the Zimbabwe Teachers Association Chief Executive Officer, as well as our esteemed educationist, Dr. Augustine Tirimangana. Our line is now open, 498-651, 498-651. Our WhatsApp number is 0778-784-222, 0778-784-222. Reading some of the chats coming through. Our teachers are the most demotivated lot in the country, hence we have very low pass rates. Gone are the days when teachers were highly respected and appreciated as contributors to future doctors, ministers, lawyers, etc. As long as they remain demotivated, we will remain with very low pass rates. Another chat coming through. In addition, dangerously, there has been a proliferation of profit-oriented private colleges, where in most times students are taught by unqualified teachers. The ministry needs to stamp on this, at the same time build sufficient schools in the country. And another chat coming through. Tawanda, today's teachers are more worried about their pocket than their profession. Straight to the point, right there. And another one, why don't teachers pool funds and form a medical aid society the same way they formed a burial society, so that they are not shortchanged by the current medical aid they are in and the doctors that attend to them? That's another contribution that's coming through. And our line, like I said, is 498-651, 498-651. Another one, Tawanda, I want to ask the official the issue of grade 7 exam papers. Isn't it now the right of students to be given their exam papers when they finish writing, to take them home, as they are now paying exam fees? Now, a number of issues have been raised, but before you get to respond to them, I'll take a call. Good morning, you're live on air.
Thank you. Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Ndinoda kutaura kuti zvese zviri kuitwa nemateachers because of hardship. Kana munhu asiri muhardship haagone kunzwisisa kuti zviri kumbofamba sei. Dai mateachers agadziserwa mari dzavo vachipiwa in time, zvese zvaigadzirika. I thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. 21 minutes to 8 is the time. Teachers need airtime and other allowances in order for them to be able to discharge their duties effectively. 498-651, 498-651 is the number to dial. Now, gentlemen, you've heard the teachers needing packs and allowances in order to discharge their duties well. I'll start with you, Dr. Tirimangana.
That's the point I was making earlier to Anna. I agree with my colleague that the selection exercise for teacher trainees is very important. It has to be done very cautiously to ensure that you only enroll those teacher trainees with a character. I do agree with that. But at the same time, we cannot do away with the fact that they had economic conditions. If they can send anyone into crime, the teacher is not an exception. By the way, I'm not saying these things because I want to condone wayward behavior. No, we want to be systematic in our analysis of factors that are contributing, to the degeneration of teacher practice in the country. So, as the caller has actually said, I think society expects the teacher to be exemplary. But society itself must also be exemplary in terms of its attitude towards the teacher. So it's not a one-way traffic, it's actually a two-way traffic. Government too also needs to respect the teacher. We are aware that financial incentivization may not be that easy given the economic situation, particularly because of the fact that the teachers are in their biggest number of all civil servants in the country. And we know a 1%, 2%, 5% increase in their income will have a huge impact on the economy. We are aware of that. But as we said earlier, these are not the only ways of incentivizing the teacher. Let us also make use of other non-financial ways of making teachers happy.
There is a listener who alluded to the issue of unqualified teachers also coming in, especially in private schools and colleges. Do you, as a teacher organization, have a database of how many teachers Zimbabwe has? Those that are qualified and who are unemployed, and those that are unqualified but are actually employed in the system, whether private or public?
First, I may not give an accurate figure of the database or the data that we have on the numbers of teachers that are outside our system as Zimbabwe Association. It is not easy to accumulate that data. But what we can only say is that those private colleges really are doing a disservice to society. And any parent who takes their children to that is actually doing so at their own peril. Because first you have to examine the levels that are there. Are those teachers there qualified to teach? Are the children safe? Some of the so-called private institutions, I'm sorry to use that word, so-called, because they are not colleges, they are not even institutions of learning. They are some kind of a grouping or occupational theater where there's some sort of practice, because we find for grade 1 or ECD up to A level all put in one class, same application facilities, and that is very chaotic. We should discourage that, and we discourage it strongly. And besides, when you encourage privatization of education, you are robbing society. And we are saying it is because government has not taken up the responsibility of investing in public institutions, and people therefore find alternatives by going so. And I want to allude to the fact that my colleague has said too. The challenges of the economy now do make us to forget where we should be going, and we are now concerned with the recent issues, but these issues should be looked also into the future. What kind of a profession are we looking at? And we should not only be focusing on the now, and the now is passing, because we are in an economic bad shape as Zimbabwe, and this is causing all these problems, and we should be fixing our economy. And if we fix our economy, we should be able to address, by and large, some of these things.
498651 is the number to dial. 498651. You wanted to add on, Dr. Tirangana. Before you do that, let me take this call. Good morning. You're live on it. Hello, good morning.
I want to let's see our teachers in Zimbabwe. I believe they are doing all they can in time. But I think the private schools.
Oh, I'll have to cut this one out because we are not getting them loud and clear. If you happen to go through the program, please kindly reduce the volume of your monitor so that there isn't that nasty feedback. Good morning, you're live on it.
Hey, Mangwana.
Mangwana.
You don't want to give us not commitment. Bazara of Massachusetts, but not the artists, they are just visiting and looking with some income. So it's like but Jaja Peter, like company car, Barba is this language. They don't like some, but it was not Jamaica President America better. I guess this is no conservative. City, it's a anti-commitment in the committee.
Thank you very much for your contribution. 7:45 is the time here on the Morning Grill. The teacher is being taken for granted by government, and it makes him or her to lose dignity in society. They end up relying on parents or even students. That's not fair. That's a chat that's coming through. We continue reading some of your chats. Some of our teachers need to be closely monitored. How can two teachers fight in front of primary school students? Let's have good headmasters and education officers, please. That's a chat that has come through. And another one, unqualified teachers is not a story. This one, unqualified teachers, and Ndagapasa A level, and I graduated from the University of Zimbabwe last Thursday. So I think it depends with the child. That's an argument that is coming through from another listener right there. 498651, 498651. What is your take as we look at the teacher profession in Zimbabwe on World Teachers Day?
Yeah, I think there is a caller who is making an important observation in terms of discipline. And we often put this under the issue of school leadership. And we are saying we must have strong school leadership. And school leadership, when it's comes in, it must be also trained to handle some of these issues, because this is where we begin to shape the characters, and that is where we also bring in the issues of legislation and conduct, which can control and probably put sanctions against such behavior. Yes, we agree with the caller. It's a tarnishing the image of the teacher. But then that does not take away the issue that one must be committed. And last caller who says that he has been taught by a temporal teacher and he passed his university degree. It depends with the child. We therefore saying we don't want to believe that if you are fortunate enough to be ahead of others in terms of your intellect, then the rest should be do so. So we must produce everybody. We must cultivate, motivate the intellectual capabilities of even there is nobody who is called who should be called Idofo, and there's nobody who should go ahead. So then that means we are leaving others behind.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to say to that caller that was it a caller or the one who's been chatting?
Yes.
That the same temporal teacher, if the temporal teacher had been trained, he would have made this particular candidate a better candidate even. So in other words, we cannot take away the importance of training. Yes, but I wanted to take this discussion a little bit higher, so that instead of confining our discussion to teachers who are primary school teachers and secondary school teachers, I could also take into account the university teachers.
Yes.
Yes, because I think that the university teachers, a good number of them are actually temporary teachers. Are actually unqualified teachers. They are unqualified in the sense that they have not received official training to teach, to become teaching professionals. And we notice that in some of our universities there is a growing trend of training their own members of staff, so that become qualified teachers. I want to believe that in pursuit of genuine quality into the future, teachers who are actually, lecturers who are teaching at universities would certainly require a teaching qualification, so that over and above their knowledge, their mastery of content in whatever area of specialization, they also have training so that they're able to handle, pedagogy, they're able to handle andragogy in a much more effective way. At the moment, most of them may have doctorates, but having doctorate is one thing. Being a teacher in the classroom is another.
But why do we have this growing trend if we have institutions that are meant to superintend the quality of universities? If we have teacher training institutions, we even have a ministry, 2 ministries actually, from both the primary and secondary as well as the higher and tertiary education, to ensure that we have a good quality teacher that should be able to teach across all levels.
Yeah, the point is, tradition has had it that universities, you did not need to be a qualified teacher to teach a university. And that's why the teachers, they were not called teachers, they were called lecturers. Up to now, they're still called lecturers. You simply go there and lecture. Which method you use to do the lecture doesn't really matter. But what you were saying is, we need actually to improve in pursuit of quality by way of making it, if possible, mandatory. That if you want to become a lecturer, university lecturer for instance, you need to have a teaching qualification that can be bred within the university, or that can be undertaken with another university. And as I've said, I'm saying this because some of the universities we have in this country are actually aware of this particular deficit, and they've taken up efforts, to start grooming their own, lecturers, so that they become not only lecturers but also teachers by qualification.
Yeah. I think what Doctor is saying is very plausible. It resonates very well with the ILO UNESCO recommendation on the status of higher education and training. That is one follow-up recommendation that has followed up the 1966 recommendation, and it alludes to those areas too. And we think we should encourage that route, and I'll be happy if all universities would embrace that. Then we'll improve even the outcomes of our graduates.
World Teachers Day also takes into cognizance of teacher organizations the world over, and Zimbabwe has a number of of teacher organizations, ZIMTA being one of them. How effective have organizations been? I will start, of course, from an outsider here, Dr. Tiriwangana. How effective have they been in dealing with teacher issues?
In fact, for information, I've been, I once held a very important position in ZIMTA as well.
Oh, interesting.
Interestingly, because I didn't start by being a university lecturer. I spent most of my time as a teacher, high school teacher, and also a very active member of ZIMTA. I want to say that the organizations, from what I recall, have played a very big role in terms of being an effective link between the teachers on one hand and the government on the other. And however, what seems to irk me at the moment is that we seem to have a good number of these associations, and I'm not very comfortable with the way they seem to be competing to be dealing with the same stakeholder. I think a way should be found between these teacher organizations to come together, doesn't matter whatever their membership, so that when they speak about the teachers' conditions, they speak with one voice.
Why do you compete, yet you are dealing with the same stakeholder, as put by Dr. Tiranga?
I must also allude to the fact that as teachers, we don't get excited when there is a proliferation of organizations. It weakens the collective voice. Because only the collective voice will resonate very well with the other parties. And the challenge that we have now is that we have liberalized. And one of the issues of liberalization is to liberalize one legislation, liberalize even thought. And this is where people are saying, from the kind of democratic discourse, I'm free to do what I want and associate with who I want. And in the process, you then get opportunistic elements in the whole group who are not genuinely there for the cause, or whose inception is not motivated by service, but is motivated by other things. So in that process, we don't have a screening area. And the other party, I must say, unfortunately, it's not fair to talk about government when it's not here. It seems to be very happy when we've got a divided voice, because it can walk through you, and it can make you fight. And at the end of the day, you don't know what agenda you should be pursuing. Or pursue yourselves, or pursue the agenda that's before you.
7 minutes to 8 is the time. Our line is still open. 498-651, 498-651. Hi, Tawanda. Our whole education system is a bit outdated. Infrastructure, quality of books, etc. If you present a degree from Zimbabwe University in these advanced economies, you're told your degree is useless. The implication is whatever you're teaching is below global standards. So our whole education system must be transformed. Good morning. You're live on air.
Morning, Grant. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sir.
Thank you even for this good program. I would like to contribute on the issue of those unqualified teachers in all those colleges that we are talking about. The unfortunate thing, Tawanda, is those colleges, they are well known. And it's unfortunate that even those people, if they are supposed to be regularized so that people they can get quality education, that would be much fine. And those associations should also advocate for such a thing to happen, because they know that if these people are not registered, maybe they will be now messing up with their own good education which they are saying there, of the government. And the other thing, in Zimbabwe, we are not supposed to be like cry babies each and every time. There are times when we should have to know that a teacher, you are supposed to go there and discharge your service. That job should be done by calling, because if we are to talk of economic hardships and all those things they are still there. And we are still finding the solution to that one. So if teachers, they are not here, they don't have that self-motivation, they should have to know that they can even work. When things are okay, then those things they will get them, and other good things they will get them. Because the most important thing is for them to build the nation. That is my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution. 5 minutes to 8 is the time, and our line is still open. 498-651, 498-651. Hi, Tawanda. I want to ask Dr. Tiranga the comparison between the teacher of the 80s and the present teacher. Why is it that the present teacher, we did not hear much issues coming from them back then, unlike what is happening today? And also ask what has happened of the expatriate teachers that used to come into the country? That's a question for you, Dr. Tiriwangana, right there. Another chat that's coming through. Teacher organizations only begin to compete when there is a politicization of existing ones, hence formulation of splinter representative associations like Rural Teachers Association, etc. And of course we read another one. The teacher is being taken for granted. The issue of results does not lie with the teacher alone. A lot comes into play: the home environment, the parenting, the child, the community, the government itself. Take for instance the policies, laws that and rules are there to degrade the teacher more and more. Health is getting donor funding, allowed to bring in cars free of duty. It is an incentive, not monetary. Results are good. Look at numbers of students going to tertiary institutions. Teachers need to be applauded under such circumstances. In a government school, 55 pupils to a teacher in a class. You talk of ghost workers, they land on teachers. Talk of any policy under public service is the teacher and not other ministries. And another one, the issue of untrained teachers is unfounded. We've seen these unqualified teachers producing better results than the so-called teachers. And another one, hello Tawana, I think some of the teachers are taking the job not because they like it, but because there's no other jobs which are paying at the moment. Gentlemen, a number of issues, starting with Dr. Tiriwangana, the difference between the teacher of the 80s and that of today.
Part of the last script that you read answers that question. During the 1980s, teachers were very much motivated. They liked their profession. Their material conditions, as I said earlier, were not bad compared to now. But more importantly, most of the teachers, for example, I will take myself as a specific example. After passing O-level, there were so many options, but I loved teaching. Teaching was almost like a calling. So when I joined Hillside Teachers College, I went there motivated to train as a teacher. But as that other caller said, most of the people are now going to train as teachers, not because they are motivated, not because it's in them to become teachers, but because it's the only option. They have to be at a college or somewhere else.
So is it by calling that you became a teacher? Or you saw an opportunity that someday you'd be CEO of ZIMTA?
No, I actually became a teacher by choice. I had an option to become a builder by joining an apprenticeship. In those days, apprenticeship was as good. But I chose teaching because I saw something that was loving and something that was caring. And from day one when I went to college, look, I did not start putting on a neck and tie after graduation. I had to put on a neck and tie while at college. I liked to look like a teacher, and there were so many teachers who gave me inspiration. And I thought if I became like Teacher so it was enviable, and you could say I want to be a teacher. But that was the time. Let me comment quickly before you come on there. There's the issue of party politics. I once must say there is no room for party politics in trade union. This is where trade unions become captured by politicians and they lose the thrust. And one thing that we pride ourselves as Multi Association is we've traded very intelligently and carefully through a philosophy of non-party political alignment.
Time has really run out, but gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. Dr. Augustine Tiriwangana, thank you so much for finding time to come to the studio, as well as Mr. Swisant Lovu, CEO with ZIMTA, as we were looking at teacher issues on World Teachers Day. It's a happy Teachers Day to all you teachers out there, and we wish you the best as you go about this noble profession. We've come to the end of the morning grill. The time now is 8 o'clock, and we cross over to a news desk for the second and final edition of Good Morning Zimbabwe.